Her daughter said I made her feel unsafe. But the truth is, I was the one being hunted, and by the time anyone believed me, my life was already on fire. I've been living with my girlfriend, Melissa, for about 9 months now. Things were going great, or at least, they were supposed to be. Melissa and I met 2 years ago through mutual friends at a cookout. She was funny, charming, and easy to be around. Divorced for 5 years, with a daughter in high school named Emily, she built a stable life on her own. When we started getting serious, I understood that her daughter was part of the package. I was okay with that. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I figured with time and patience, we could all make it work. At first, Emily seemed indifferent to me. She was 15 then, about to turn 16, and spent most of her time locked away in her room or out with friends. We exchanged the occasional hello and goodbye, but that was about it. Melissa told me not to take it personally. Emily had always been slow to warm up to people. That was fine with me. I wasn't trying to be her dad. I just wanted to support Melissa and be respectful in her home. Things shifted about 3 months after I moved in. I remember the first time it struck me as odd. I was in the kitchen early one Saturday, about to make coffee, when Emily came down in her pajamas, just a tank top and shorts, and told me to sit down because she'd already started the coffee pot. I laughed, surprised, and thanked her. She poured me a mug and even asked if I took cream and sugar. I said thanks again, took the cup, and figured maybe she was turning a corner. Maybe she was finally warming up to me. Then it kept happening. Every morning. Like clockwork. I'd wake up to the smell of coffee and Emily already in the kitchen. Some mornings she'd have breakfast going too, scrambled eggs, toast, once even pancakes. At first, I thought she was doing it for her mom too, but Melissa always came down later, surprised the food was ready. She even joked about how domestic Emily was acting. Said maybe she was trying to impress me with her cooking skills. We both laughed it off. But it didn't stop there. A few weeks later, I was getting ready for work and couldn't find my favorite blue dress shirt. Melissa was still upstairs getting dressed, so I started digging through the laundry basket in the living room. That's when Emily walked in, holding the shirt, freshly ironed, draped over a hanger. "Here," she said, smiling. "I thought this was your favorite. So I took care of it." I stood there for a second, confused. "You ironed this?" "Yeah," she said casually, like it was no big deal. "I kind of like ironing. It's weirdly calming." Now look, I'm not the kind of guy to assume things right away. I really thought maybe she was just trying to be helpful. Maybe she was turning a new leaf, trying to be supportive of her mom's relationship. But something about it didn't sit right with me. Not at the time. I just didn't want to say anything to Melissa and seem like I was overreacting. I should have spoken up then. I know that now. Over the next few weeks, it escalated. Subtly, but definitely escalated. She started waiting up for me when I worked late, even when her mom was already asleep. One night I walked in at 11 p.m., exhausted, and found her on the couch watching Netflix. She popped up and asked if I wanted something to eat, like she was playing housewife or something. I told her no thanks and headed upstairs, feeling a little off about it, but again, I pushed it out of my mind. The first time she tried to sit on my lap, I froze. It was a Saturday morning, and Melissa had gone out early to run errands. I was in the living room drinking coffee and reading emails on my phone when Emily came in and plopped down next to me on the couch. She was wearing a baggy sweatshirt and pajama pants. I didn't think much of it until she leaned into me and rested her head on my shoulder. Then, slowly, she swung one leg over and tried to sit on my lap, like not jokingly, not as a prank, just sat there. "Emily," I said sharply, immediately pulling back. "What are you doing?" She blinked, like I was the weird one. "I just wanted to sit." "That's not appropriate," I said, standing up. "You can't do that." Her face changed in an instant. From blank to something sharper. Angry. Embarrassed. Defensive. She got up, muttered something I couldn't make out, and walked straight up the stairs. I stood there in the living room with my heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. When Melissa got back an hour later, I told her. I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to pretend everything was fine. I explained the whole thing, how Emily had tried to sit in my lap, how uncomfortable I felt. I expected her to be shocked, maybe furious. Instead, she looked confused. "Are you sure?" she asked. "That just doesn't sound like Emily." "I'm positive. She just did it. I didn't provoke anything. She just did it." Melissa sat down, quiet. Maybe she was trying to be funny. She's awkward sometimes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Melissa, that wasn't awkward. That was intentional." She's been ironing my shirts, making my coffee, waiting up for me. This has been going on for a while. She didn't say anything. Just sat there like she didn't want to believe it. I'm not blaming her, I added quickly. I'm not saying she's some villain. This is inappropriate. It needs to stop. Melissa finally nodded. Okay. I'll talk to her. But whatever she said to Emily, it didn't change much. Emily stopped the lap stuff, obviously, but the rest didn't stop. If anything, she started doing it all more discreetly. She'd leave my shirts folded on the dresser instead of handing them to me. She'd pour my coffee but not wait in the kitchen, just leave it out for me to find, like some twisted little gift. And she stopped talking to me completely. Not a word. Just silent glares or long stares from across the room that made my skin crawl. Melissa noticed the change too, and things between us got tense. She was caught in the middle, I knew that. But I started feeling like a stranger in my own home. The place where I was supposed to feel relaxed, welcome, safe. Instead, I felt like I was walking on eggshells every time Emily was around. Then one night, everything came to a head. It was about 2 weeks ago. Melissa had gone out to dinner with friends, and I was home alone. Or so I thought. I was upstairs getting ready for bed when I heard something fall in the kitchen. A loud clang, like a drop pan or a metal spoon hitting tile. I went down to check it out and found Emily standing there, staring at the floor. There was a broken mug by her feet, one of Melissa's favorites. What happened? I asked cautiously. I dropped it, she said flatly. I sighed and walked over to grab the broom. As I started sweeping, I could feel her eyes on me. I tried to ignore it, but then she spoke again, quieter this time. She doesn't deserve you. I stopped. What? My mom, she said. She doesn't even see you. She just uses you to feel special. Like she still matters. I stood there, stunned. Emily, that's not something you should be saying. She stepped closer. You're the only one who really notices me. I see how you look at me. I backed away. Okay, that's enough. This is over the line. You need to go to your room right now. She didn't move. Go, I said firmly. And finally, she turned and walked away. But as she passed me, she brushed her hand against mine. Deliberately. Slowly. That was the last straw. I told Melissa everything. Again. I didn't care if she wanted to believe it or not, I was done being quiet. And this time, she listened. For the first time, she didn't defend Emily. She didn't make excuses. She just sat there with her head in her hands, breathing deeply like she was holding back a panic attack. This can't continue, I told her. Something has to change. Melissa nodded slowly. She has to go. I was stunned. What do you mean, go? I mean she has to go stay with her dad for a while. Or my sister. I don't know. But she can't stay here. And now, everything's hanging in the air. Emily's been quiet since that night. Like, eerily quiet. Melissa hasn't said anything to her yet, but she's planning to. Tonight. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if Melissa and I will even make it through this. But I do know one thing, what happened wasn't normal. It wasn't innocent. And if we don't deal with it head on, it's only going to get worse. Melissa waited until after dinner to sit Emily down. I stayed out of it, let her handle it alone. We agreed that I shouldn't be in the room, that it would only make things worse, more combative, more emotional. But even from upstairs, I could hear enough. The walls in our townhouse aren't exactly soundproof. At first, it was quiet. Just Melissa talking in that slow, careful voice she uses when she's trying not to explode. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught things like boundaries and inappropriate. Then I heard Emily's voice rise. You believe him over me? Melissa's reply was muffled, but it set Emily off. I didn't do anything. He's lying. I didn't sit on him. I was just trying to be nice. Why do you always choose men over me? There it was. That line hit me like a punch to the chest. Because in that one sentence, I realized what I hadn't considered before, this wasn't just about me. This wasn't some random teenage flirtation or an attempt to cause chaos. There was a deep, bitter history between Melissa and her daughter that I had only scratched the surface of. I couldn't hear what Melissa said next, but I heard the chair scrape loudly, and then footsteps storming up the stairs. Emily's bedroom door slammed so hard the whole hallway shook. Melissa came up about 10 minutes later and collapsed onto the edge of the bed, her face pale and tired. She says I'm throwing her away, she whispered. She told me she wishes I was dead. I didn't know what to say. I just pulled her into my arms, and she buried her face in my chest. It wasn't relief. It was grief. Like something between them had shattered and she wasn't sure if it could be repaired. She's leaving in the morning, Melissa finally said. She's going to stay with her dad for a while. I already called him. I was surprised. He agreed? He didn't hesitate, she said. Which says a lot, doesn't it? We sat in silence for a while. I couldn't help thinking about all the signs we'd missed or ignored. How long had Emily been feeling this way? Had there been other times Melissa didn't listen or chose someone else over her? Had I walked into something much more broken than I ever realized? The next morning was tense. Emily came downstairs with her suitcase already packed, face blank, eyes red but dry. She didn't speak to either of us. Just grabbed a granola bar from the pantry, waited silently by the front door, and left without a goodbye when her dad pulled up. Melissa tried to hug her, but Emily pulled away. I hope you're happy, she muttered before slamming the door behind her. Melissa cried for most of the day. She barely ate. Didn't go into work. Just sat on the couch flipping through old photos on her phone, looking like a ghost of herself. I didn't press her to talk. Honestly, I didn't know what to say either. I felt a strange mix of guilt and relief. Guilt, because I hated being the reason they were torn apart. Relief, because I finally felt safe in my own home again. But that relief didn't last long. 3 days later, the call started. It began with Melissa's sister, Danielle. Then her mom. Then a friend of hers from work. All of them asking what the hell was going on, why Emily had been sent away, what happened that was so bad she had to leave in the middle of the school week. Apparently, Emily had been doing some storytelling. She told people that I had made her uncomfortable. That I watched her inappropriately, made suggestive comments, touched her without consent. She didn't say it outright, she was smart about it, slippery with her words, but the implications were enough. Enough to raise eyebrows, to turn people against us. Melissa was horrified. She defended me to everyone who called, but I could see the panic in her eyes. The fear. And beneath all that, a quiet uncertainty that I couldn't ignore. You don't believe any of that, right? I asked her one night, voice low. She looked up from the couch. Of course not. I know you. I know what happened. But she didn't say it right away. And that hesitation, it stuck in my gut like a splinter. The worst call came from the school counselor. Melissa had to take it alone, in the bedroom, but I heard enough through the door to know what was happening. Emily had gone to the school nurse complaining of anxiety and stress. She said she didn't feel safe at home and that she'd been exposed to adult behavior that made her uncomfortable. That phrase, exposed to adult behavior, was all it took. The counselor was required to report it. A caseworker was being assigned. I was in shock. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Just a week ago I was planning a weekend trip with Melissa, trying to figure out what grill to buy for the backyard. Now I was being treated like some kind of predator because a 17-year-old girl was angry that her mother picked her boyfriend over her. When Melissa came out of the bedroom, she looked like she'd aged 10 years. I don't know what to do, she said. This is so far beyond what I expected. I need to talk to a lawyer, I replied. Right now. That night, I called a buddy of mine, Troy, who's been an attorney for a decade. He was just as shocked as I was. Told me to write down everything, every interaction, every detail. He said not to delete texts, not to confront Emily directly, and to be careful with Melissa too. She's stuck between you and her daughter, Troy said. If this escalates, she might choose the path of least resistance. That might not be you. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the living room, lights dimmed, staring at nothing while my thoughts ran wild. I couldn't help asking myself, did I miss something? Could I have handled it differently? Was I naive to think that being kind and patient would be enough? The truth is, I felt violated. Not physically, but emotionally, mentally. I felt like my integrity had been stolen and weaponized. That this girl who barely knew me had decided, for reasons I still didn't fully understand, to ruin my life just because she could. The next few days were a blur of stress and paranoia. I kept waiting for a knock at the door. Melissa was in a daze most of the time. She apologized constantly, but her apologies felt hollow, like she was trying to convince herself more than me. Then, out of nowhere, Emily called. Melissa answered it on speakerphone. I was sitting beside her, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. Mom, Emily said. I'm sorry. Melissa blinked. What? I said I'm sorry. I didn't mean for everything to get so blown up. Melissa glanced at me. Emily, do you know what you've done? There was silence on the line. Then Emily sighed. I didn't lie, she said. Maybe I exaggerated. I didn't say he hurt me or anything. I just said I was uncomfortable. That's not a crime, is it? Melissa clenched the phone. Emily, you told your school you didn't feel safe at home. You made it sound like he was some kind of predator. He made me feel invisible. Emily snapped. You both did. Ever since he moved in, it's like I stopped existing. He got your attention. Your affection. Your time. Everything I used to get. Melissa was speechless. I wasn't. You know what, Emily? I said, voice shaking. You didn't want a father figure. You wanted a pawn. Someone to notice you, to give you attention your mom wasn't. But what you did, that was manipulative. And dangerous. People lose their jobs, their homes, everything, over accusations like that. Emily didn't say anything for a long time. Then, in a whisper, I didn't think it would go that far. Melissa ended the call. We haven't heard from her since. The school's backed off for now. The caseworker never showed up, and Troy says that's a good sign. But the damage is done. My name's not cleared because there was no formal charge, but the cloud is still there, hovering. And Melissa and we're not okay. Not really. We haven't said it out loud yet, but I can feel the space growing between us. We're more polite than affectionate. We avoid talking about Emily. And the house feels cold, like a museum, like something frozen in time, waiting for someone to thaw it out. Part of me wants to leave. To pack up and go before it all falls apart. The other part still wants to believe there's something worth saving. But I don't know which part is going to win. The silence between Melissa and me grew heavier with each passing day. It's strange how you can share the same house, the same bed, the same routine, and still feel like you're living separate lives. She went back to work. I kept my head down and worked from home as much as I could. We said the usual things, did you eat? How was work? Need anything from the store? But none of it meant much. It was like going through the motions while waiting for something to break. And something did. About a week after that phone call with Emily, Melissa came home late. Her eyes were red, and she looked like she'd been crying. She walked past me in the kitchen without saying a word, straight to the bedroom. I followed, cautiously. When I stepped in, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding her phone in both hands like it weighed 50 pounds. She's coming back, she said, without looking up. I blinked. What? Her dad said she's too much for him. His girlfriend doesn't want her around. He said she needs to be with her mother. Melissa, you can't be serious. I didn't ask for this, she snapped, finally looking at me. I didn't want her back this soon either. But what am I supposed to do? Tell my kid she's not welcome in her own home? She tried to destroy my life, I said, my voice hard. She told people I made her feel unsafe. You know what that means in this world? I could have lost everything. I know. Melissa yelled. You think I don't know that? I've been carrying that guilt around every day. I defended you. I took your side. But I'm still her mother. And I'm not going to live in the same house as her again, I said. I can't. I won't. Melissa went quiet. Her lips trembled, but she didn't cry. Not this time. So what are you saying? She asked. That it's her or me? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I hated it. I'm saying I can't be in this house with her, I finally said. After everything that happened? After what she said. I'm not going to pretend like it's okay. And I won't let myself become a target again. Melissa nodded slowly. Then she stood up, walked to the dresser, and started changing out of her work clothes. I'll figure something out, she said. That night, I slept in the guest room. It wasn't official, but it was understood, we'd crossed into some new space now. Not quite broken up, not quite together. Just unsteady. A couple of days later, Emily came back. I wasn't home when she arrived. I'd started spending more time at the office just to avoid being there. When I came home that evening, her suitcase was by the stairs. Her schoolbooks were scattered on the coffee table. And her bedroom door was shut. Melissa greeted me in the kitchen with a glass of wine and eyes that said, please don't start anything. She knows the rules, she said softly. She's staying out of your way. She understands things have changed. I didn't believe that for a second. But I nodded anyway. Over the next few days, the house felt like a Cold War zone. Emily avoided me. I avoided her. We existed in parallel, never overlapping. Melissa tried to act normal, but there was no normal anymore. Just quiet tension. Until Wednesday night. I'd come home late from work, closer to 9 p.m., and Melissa was already asleep upstairs. I walked into the living room and immediately felt something was off. The lights were low, the TV was on some muted cooking show, and there, sitting on the couch in one of Melissa's robes, was Emily. I froze. She didn't move. Just looked up from her phone like this was totally normal. "Don't freak out," she said flatly. I just grabbed the first thing I saw. I kept my voice calm. "You shouldn't be in here dressed like that." She rolled her eyes. "It's a robe. Relax." "I'm not doing this," I said, turning to leave. She stood up. "You know, you're not innocent in all this either." That stopped me. I turned back, confused. "What are you talking about? You think you didn't lead me on? All those smiles, those compliments. You acted like I was some cute little sidekick or something. Like I was special." I began, but she cut me off. "You didn't say it," she hissed. "But you showed it. You wanted me to like you. You wanted to be the fun stepdad, right? Well, congratulations. You got my attention." I stared at her, stunned. "So this is my fault now?" She didn't answer. Just stood there, arms crossed, eyes locked on mine with that same unreadable look she gave me the day she left. "I'm not doing this," I repeated, and turned away again. Behind me, I heard her mutter, "Coward." That word clung to me for the rest of the night. The next morning, I told Melissa everything, again. Her face drained of color. She didn't even try to argue this time. "She's going back to her dad's," she said. "Melissa, we've been down this road already." "No," she said firmly. "I mean it. I'll drive her myself if I have to. I can't keep pretending this is okay." But Emily didn't give us the chance. That afternoon, while we were both at work, she went through Melissa's laptop and posted a long, emotional rant on Melissa's Facebook. A full-blown public call-out. In it, she claimed she was being emotionally neglected, that she was silenced for speaking up, and that she was scared to live in her own home because of a man who manipulated his way into our lives. She didn't use my name, but everyone knew who she was talking about. By the time we saw the post, it had already been shared 6 times and had over 50 comments. Some people were sympathetic. Most weren't. But the damage was done. Melissa sat staring at the screen in disbelief. She used my laptop. My login. I didn't say anything. I was too busy feeling that sick, familiar twist in my gut again, the same one from weeks ago, when all this started. It took hours, but Melissa got the post deleted. She posted her own follow-up explaining that the situation was more complicated than her daughter let on, but people had already taken sides. I could see it in the comments. In the messages she started receiving. In the ones I got from co-workers asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay. And neither was Melissa. Emily left the next day. Not with drama this time. No screaming, no accusations. She packed her stuff quietly and left a single note on her bed. "I hope you're both happy. Enjoy your perfect little life without me. Maybe next time, pick someone who isn't a monster." Melissa cried when she read it. I didn't. That was the last time I saw Emily. But even with her gone, nothing went back to normal. Melissa and I tried. For a while. We made dinner together. Went out once or twice. Slept in the same bed again. But it wasn't the same. How could it be? Every time she touched me, I wondered if she was thinking about Emily's words. Every time I left the house, I wondered who still believed them. And every time we talked about the future, the silence afterward said more than either of us could. It finally came to a head one night when I got home late. Melissa was sitting at the kitchen table, a glass of wine in one hand and her phone in the other. She didn't even look up. "We're just pretending now," she said. I didn't answer. I knew she was right. "I love you," she said quietly. But this broke something in me. In us. "I know," I replied. We didn't fight. We didn't yell. We just sat there for a long time, not touching, not talking. Just letting the inevitable settle in the room between us. 2 weeks later, I moved out. I found a short-term lease on a furnished apartment near my job. Packed my things in silence. Melissa helped. She cried, but I didn't. Not until I got in the car and looked back at the house for the last time. It was just a building. But for a while, it had felt like home. Now? It was just where everything fell apart. I didn't tell anyone the full story at first. When friends asked why I moved out, I just said the relationship had run its course. I didn't want to get into it. How do you even begin to explain something like that? That your girlfriend's teenage daughter essentially launched a slow-motion grenade into your life and you had to walk away before it went off again? The thing is, I wasn't angry at first. Just exhausted. Numb. I unpacked in silence. A furnished apartment means you don't bring much, so most of it was just clothes, toiletries, and my computer setup. I didn't hang anything on the walls. Didn't bother with groceries the first week. I lived on takeout and bad gas station coffee. The bed felt unfamiliar. The silence felt wrong. I'd lie awake at night wondering if Melissa was too. Wondering if Emily even felt the weight of what she did. I doubted it. About a month after I moved out, I ran into Melissa at a grocery store. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of it all had hollowed her out a little. We both froze when we saw each other in the frozen food aisle, of all places. And then, slowly, she walked over. "Hey," she said, eyes red. "Hey." There was an awkward pause before she asked, "How are you?" "I'm adjusting." She nodded. "Yeah. Same." Another pause. Then she blurted out, "I'm seeing a therapist." That caught me off guard. "You are?" She gave a little laugh. "Yeah. Turns out I probably should have years ago. Not just because of this. Because of everything. I've been doing a lot of digging. A lot of ugly stuff I've never really dealt with." I didn't know what to say. Part of me was proud of her. Part of me wondered if it was too late for any of that to matter. "I'm sorry," she said. "Again. For all of it." I nodded. "Me too." We stood there for another minute or so. Neither of us brought up Emily. Neither of us had to. Before we parted ways, Melissa touched my arm. "You didn't deserve what happened to you. You were the only stable person in that house for a long time. I see that now." And then she walked away. I stood there a long time after she left, holding a pint of Rocky Road and wondering how things could have been different. If only she'd seen it sooner. If only Emily had been honest. If only I had spoken up louder, earlier. If only is a dangerous game. About 2 weeks later, I got an unexpected email. It was from Emily. Subject line, "For what it's worth." I hesitated to open it. My hands were actually shaking. But curiosity won. The email was short. No greeting. No signature. "I know I hurt you. I know I messed everything up. I don't know why I did all of it. I think part of me just wanted to be seen. Not forgiven. Just seen. I'm sorry. That was it. No explanations. No desperate plea for understanding. Just a few raw sentences from someone who, for the first time in this whole mess, sounded like they meant it. I didn't reply. Not right away. Maybe not ever. But I read it a few times. And then I sat back and let the weight of it settle. Here's the thing, when all this first happened, I was furious. Not just at Emily, but at myself, for not seeing it coming, for not protecting myself better, for trusting too easily. But now, months later, I wasn't angry. I was just sad. Sad that a kid felt like the only way to be noticed was to sabotage her mom's relationship. Sad that Melissa didn't step in sooner. Sad that something that started out so promising ended like this. It took me a long time to start dating again. The first time I downloaded a dating app, I stared at the screen for 10 minutes before deleting it. It felt like trying to start a new book when the last one hadn't even fully ended. But eventually, I gave it another shot. Started going on a few casual dates. Nothing serious, not at first. I wasn't looking for a replacement for Melissa. I just wanted to feel normal again. One night, I went out with someone named Jamie. She was funny, smart, asked thoughtful questions. When I told her I'd just gotten out of something complicated, she smiled and said, "Haven't we all?" That night, I slept a little easier. Time passed. Melissa and I didn't talk much after that grocery store encounter. A text here and there, usually about mail I forgot to forward or some bill I'd left in my name. But that was it. Then, in January, she sent one last message. "Just wanted you to know I'm moving. Selling the house. Starting fresh. Thank you for everything. Even though it didn't work out, I'm grateful for the time we had. You deserved better than how it ended. I wish you peace. M." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied, "I wish you peace too." That was the last we ever spoke. I heard through a mutual friend that Emily ended up switching schools. Apparently she's doing better. Seeing a counselor. Staying with her dad again, but things are calmer now. Maybe she's finally getting the help she needed. I hope so. I really do. As for me, I'm okay. Some scars don't fully fade, but they stop bleeding. The world feels steady again. I've got a new apartment, a new routine, and the beginnings of something good with Jamie. But every now and then, when the house is quiet and my mind drifts, I still think about that moment, Emily standing in the living room in her mother's robe, eyes locked on mine, daring me to flinch. And I remember what it felt like to be in the middle of a storm you never saw coming, trying to hold onto something you thought was safe. And how quickly it can all slip away. It's strange how time smooths out the edges of even your worst memories. Not erases them, just dulls them. Like waves washing over a jagged rock until it's still sharp, but no longer cuts you every time you brush against it. It's been nearly a year since I walked out of that house. Since I left behind a future that, at one point, I built up in my head like it was something unbreakable. Melissa, Emily, the possibility of a family. It all seemed so real, so close, and then, gone. I didn't go looking for closure. I learned the hard way that chasing that kind of thing usually leaves you more confused than comforted. But it came anyway, in pieces. The biggest piece came last month. Jamie and I had been seeing each other for about 6 months by then. Things were going well, better than I'd expected. She was understanding about my past, never pushed too hard, and gave me space when I needed it. One night, we were out with a couple of her friends for dinner, and someone made a joke about teenagers being nightmare roommates. I laughed along, but I must have made a face, because Jamie touched my knee under the table and gave me that look, gentle, but curious. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded. "Yeah. Just got reminded of a few things." Later, when we got home, she asked me if I ever thought about reaching out to Melissa. Not to get back together, just to talk. To get a sense of where things really ended. "I don't know," I said. "Would it change anything?" "Maybe not," she said. "But sometimes it helps. Even if it's just to hear that the other person's doing okay too." I thought about that for days. And then, one rainy Thursday afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I called her. Melissa picked up on the second ring. "Hello?" "Hey," I said. "It's me." There was a pause. I heard her exhale slowly. "Wow. Hey." We talked for nearly an hour. She told me she'd moved again, somewhere smaller, closer to work. Emily was living full-time with her dad now and had just turned 18. They were still working on things. Not close, exactly, but civil. Melissa said she still blamed herself for a lot. For not seeing the sign sooner. For letting things spiral. "I spent so long trying to pretend we were a normal family," she said. "I didn't want to see that it was already broken before you ever came along." I didn't argue. She wasn't wrong. "I knew," she asked. "You sound lighter." "I am," I said. "Took a while, but yeah. I am." We didn't talk about getting back together. That door had closed a long time ago, and we both knew it. But by the end of the call, there was something in her voice I hadn't heard in over a year. Peace. She told me she was dating again, too. Someone new. Someone good. I was genuinely happy for her. Before we hung up, she said, "I hope she knows what she's got." I smiled. She does. And I hope he knows what he's got too. After that call, I felt something lift. Not guilt, because I'd done nothing wrong, but the weight of everything I'd carried. The uncertainty. The anger. The resentment. It wasn't gone, but it felt smaller. Manageable. And Emily? I don't know what's become of her exactly. I haven't heard from her again. And I don't think I will. But I hope she's okay. I hope she's getting help. I hope one day, when she's older, she looks back at all of this and realizes what could have happened if things had gone just a little bit differently. Because for a while there, she almost destroyed me. There's this moment that sticks with me, right before I left the house for good. Melissa and I were standing in the kitchen, and she asked, "If this hadn't happened, do you think we'd still be together?" I remember looking around the room. At the cabinets we'd painted together. The bar stools we argued over. The cheap string light she'd hung around the window that never really worked right. And I said, yeah. Probably. But it wouldn't have been the life we thought it was. Because something was already broken. Melissa nodded, like she already knew. Sometimes I still drive past the neighborhood. Not on purpose, just out of habit. And every time I do, I feel a mix of gratitude and grief. Gratitude that I got out before things got worse. Grief that I ever had to. But I've learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It just means learning how to carry the story without letting it crush you. So that's what I'm doing now. Carrying the story. one honest day at a time.